Warning, some viewers may find this content disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Jessica Jones, aka the Cryptid Huntress. Once again, we team up for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. And as always, this is going to be legendary. Yet please allow me to feed. Absolutely delicious. And now that that has been taken care of and the shackles have been removed and I am fully revamped, it is time for the Cryptid Huntress and myself to take a walk into the darkness.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's the Cryptid Huntress. I'm Jessica Jones. And man, we've got a fantastic show tonight for you guys. I have my really good friend, Kenny Thibodeau. You guys know him as StarFox. In the studio tonight, he's with the North American Dogman Project. And man, let me tell you, that is the perfect person to bring on this show tonight. He and I do a show together every other week. On his YouTube channel, we talk about Dogman and werewolves on his channel. It's called Midnight Lycanthropy. So if you guys haven't checked that out, a new video just dropped today. So please go check that out. But we're going to be talking tonight about the werewolf of Bedburg, Germany. Oh my gosh. This is one of the most brutal cases of a werewolf in history from the 1500s. And this was tasked to me a while back as a coordinate remote viewing target. And I have some very interesting data on this because there's no doubt that this person, whose name is Peter, I think it's Stubb. It could be Stubb A, but I think I'm going to say Stubb tonight because I don't know. Peter Stubb. Okay, let's just say old Peter. He was accused of being a werewolf. And I'm going to give a little overview in just a minute of the entire story. And Kenny and I are going to talk about this. We're going to have a great discussion tonight. But he was actually caught in the act, still shapeshifted into a werewolf or a wolf, changed back to human form in front of the men who caught him. And he was later tortured and unalived. Okay, along with his mistress, they said mistress. I guess that's his lady friend and his daughter. Okay, so this is a really interesting story. It really gives us some good history on werewolves, okay, and potentially even the Dogman phenomenon as well. We're going to talk about that with Kenny tonight. If you guys would like to follow along with all of my shows, please go to thecryptidhuntress.com. That's my website. All of my events I'm going to be at, including, that's why I'm so flustered right now. I have been packing up because I'm heading out to Tennessee tomorrow. I will be at the Manimal Research Squatch Out. That's tomorrow through the weekend. I'm going to be speaking along with Lori Wade, and we're going to have a great time camping out, doing some Sasquatching up in East Tennessee. I will give y'all an update when I get back. I'm probably not. I try to get a show recorded, but I just haven't had time for tomorrow night. If I get one tomorrow, I'll put it up for Saturday. But I will be in the woods Saturday night. But I'm starting a brand new show on Monday, so you guys are going to get another big dose of the Cryptid Huntress every week now. Every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern, I'll be back here live. Okay, so I'm going to do an update of the weekend on Monday, and I have John Vendeventer coming back to hang out with us. We're going to be talking about CERN, Large Hadron Colliders, and the entities that have been coming out of them on Monday. It's going to be a blockbuster of a show on Monday. So y'all come back and see me Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern live. Okay. All right. So I was tasked with this as a coordinate remote viewing target. This was in the pool of all the targets that I've been given over the years and the months. And so I have the data. It's in my Patreon, and we're going to go over some of that data tonight. To help me do that, I have Kenny Thibodeau. You guys probably know him as StarFox on YouTube. And please tell me welcome to the show, my good buddy, StarFox. What's up, Kenny?
Jessica, how we doing, my friend? A long time no talk, eh?
I know it's been like a whole, not even 24 hours since I've talked to you. Yeah, how have you been?
Not too bad. Extremely busy today, just like yourself. And plugging away on some videos for some content, working with some stuff for Jody on the website, and actually spoke to Doug Hychek earlier about trying to make sure we're still on plan to do the Monster Quest reboot in the fall he wants me to work on.
Oh, very cool. Well, you work with the North American Dogman Project. Tell everybody about that and how you got into the Dogman phenomenon.
Sure. Well, first off, I just would like to thank Jessica for having me on, but also just always allotting time to come on over to my podcast, because we definitely have some good stuff. And now, to fully answer your question, just being a journalist, I like to nerd out. I'm a geeker. I like to learn things. And ever since I was a kid, I just had a fascination just with knowledge. And well, I ended up stumbling across Monster Quest, and well, instantly fell in love as a younger high school kid would have. And I ended up finding out about Linda Godfrey and Jody Cook through that. And through there, they became two of my favorite people in regards of trying to figure out what exactly potentially was occurring. And now fast forward, Jody Cook's like one of my best friends, and I get to text the guy pretty much almost every other day and talk to him weekly, which is pretty cool. But yeah, that's what I do, is I just document things, and I'm a visual specialist. So I work on the website, and, I do visual content, meaning, it can be like music videos in regards or promo stuff to what we're doing. So yeah.
Yeah, you do a great job too. You do a lot of the historian work with the North American Dogman Project, and I have a lot of fun talking with you. Like, what do we do it every other week? I guess we record a show bi-weekly. Yes, and it's always fun, and it's kind of like I've been even pulling up some of the old werewolf stories that I've looked into, some of the things I've done remote viewing sessions with. And we have really good conversations on there. We talk about werewolves. I know your forte are dogmen, okay, but you also, I know you got a little vampire in you, right? So vampires and werewolves, right?
1442 France, that's when I was born, right? So
I mean, I don't doubt that. I don't one bit. I'm just kidding. But I like to talk about werewolves with you. And we actually talked about briefly last night. We talked about some Viking werewolves that we talked about on my channel on Saturday night with Eric Testerman. And those are pretty savage. Okay. We talked about the connection to the berserkers, and tonight's topic, the werewolf of Bedburg, is something that goes back to the 1500s. And this was one of the most brutal, savage cases the guy was literally like a serial okay, but took on the form of a werewolf when he put on a girdle. Is that something that you hear about a bit when you're researching werewolves and reports like that?
That's a very good question. And to be quite honest with you, as you did state, I definitely would say I specialize more in the cynocephaly and the dogman aspects. And when it comes to things like skinwalkers and werewolves, I like to definitely defer to individuals such as yourself and Ryan Tremblay and just others that have a good knowledge as to what's occurring with that. Yet, obviously, it all kind of breaks down still under the terminology Dogman, which is what I try to explain to people. So whether it's Coyote Man or a werewolf or bear man or a hyena type Dogman or German Shepherd, baboon, raccoon, like it's all still under that category of Dogman. So obviously, the term werewolf, I'm definitely familiarized with it. Yet, as last night we had kind of mentioned, sometimes I wonder though, because the term werewolf obviously is a terminology, yet they would always be seen wearing clothing and such, and people would just assume that they must have been in human form to have on clothing. Yet with the cynocephali, which goes super far back, 290 BC, and other time frames around then, other cultures speak of it, they wore furs of animals, but yet also human clothing. And they never transformed back and forth. They're always just in this canine like hominoid figure. So same thing with like the Rougarou and such when it came over with the French lore. It makes me wonder if when they did see these at night, because I mean, dogmen are spotted obviously more at night than in the afternoon and morning times. They're still spotted, but nighttime is usually their prime spots. And they're seen, say, with clothing on. Everyone would assume they must have been a person, but as stated with the cynocephali, they did wear clothing and such. And our science team has a theory that their civilization, when mentioned by the Greeks and the Indian culture, not the Native Americans, the actual continent of India, that culture of the cynocephali basically fell just like every other great culture, whether it was the Egyptians, Romans, and now they're in sparse numbers in comparison to what they were, yet they're still being spotted, and they're still going to have the similarities of wearing clothing and fur. So it kind of just makes me wonder if those might be a little bit more tied in than we actually think.
Yeah, I think they are. And I've had people on my show who have talked about seeing dogmen wearing clothes. Javier Morales from Cryptid 559 in California. I don't know if Javier's in the chat tonight, but he had an encounter with a huge muscular dogman, and it was wearing shorts. I think he said jean shorts or ripped shorts of some sort. He didn't think it was a werewolf, though. I'm pretty sure he said on it being like a dogman. So it's kind of perplexing because when we think of something wearing clothes like that, you would think it might be a werewolf, I guess. But there is that shapeshifter element. I talk about that a lot with the shapeshifting, the black magic, the dark magic, the rituals and things where there can be, they say, I've never seen it personally, except for remote viewing it. But I've never seen it in person. I don't really want to see someone shapeshift into a werewolf, honestly. I mean, actually, I kind of would, but if it was behind like a big, like a plexiglass where they couldn't get to me, okay, it'd be cool. But it's perplexing, okay? And there's a whole lot that we don't know about these things. There's more that we don't know than we do know. Wouldn't you agree?
That's very true right there and well stated. And I think there's a lot more merit to the skinwalker aspects again than to, say, the werewolf. And when it comes to skinwalking, there's a lot of darkness and magic that kind of goes on within that, and makes me wonder sometimes potentially maybe if what we're seeing is when they're using that magic, maybe a distortion of that, not necessarily what's presenting itself. And the real big thing that kind of gets me on the hook with a werewolf, I guess, is, like I said, I try to be as subjective and objective as possible, look inside, outside, scientific, and, like I said, nerd out. But if just something as simple as a piece of silver, okay, meaning you could have a mini blade, and if you supposedly got this thing, I guess, in the jugular or some sort of spot, sure, the curse has been passed on to you. We'll play that game. But either way, you can unalive this thing so simply with just a piece of silver, correct? Okay. It makes myself and like my science team think, what can potentially, how could they survive that actual transformation then, meaning with all the blood vessels blowing up in your joints and your brain just smashing, your heart exploding, all that trauma would destroy you. Now, if we're talking about the skinwalker aspect, I understand we're talking about magic now, and dogmen don't transform. But again, werewolves, so you go through this massive transformation, which means you basically need to be immortal. It's just kind of an interesting anticlimactic villain, correct?
It does seem that way. It does. Well, you know what? The thing that I've learned, I've come to accept, is that when it comes to the paranormal, the supernatural with cryptids, a lot of things don't make sense. Okay? And I've seen that with my own eyes. I'm going to be out in the field doing some Bigfooting this weekend. It's not going to be like the hardcore research that we do, but we're going to be in a really cool area. East Tennessee is highly well known for their Dogman reports and their Bigfoot sightings and the Oak Ridge labs and all that stuff, including, and also those like unidentified animal attacks and stuff. So I'm going to have my head on a swivel all weekend. I can promise you. In addition to trying to, because I know that I'm going to feel, I don't know who all's going to be there because this is the first time I've done a public type of an event, Bigfooting before. I don't usually do these, okay, with people I don't know out in the woods. So it's going to be a fun camp out.
Yeah, that would make
but
sense.
I'm also going to be really like protective of people too, because if there's people that are there that have never been Bigfooting, I know I'm going to feel a need to protect them from what's out there, because there's a lot of really dangerous things out there, Kenny, right?
I mean, just not even cryptids, just if you would like to speak about some of the more monsters in the world. I mean, just, look at some of the stuff that human beings are capable of. So, yeah, of course. I mean, just in general, you want to be safe out in the wild. I mean, on a funny note, I was watching something the other day. This gentleman's fishing, and he was bit in the behind by a beaver, a rabid beaver. Luckily, his rabies boosters, and he ended up getting the proper treatment after. But he said he's sitting there fishing like waist deep, getting ready to try to untangle his lure, and he feels something just wham right in his butt cheeks, and he turns around and it's this beaver. So he's on his back now trying to get it away. And as he's still telling everyone, because he has a YouTube thread, the beaver is like coming up out of the water and super gnarly. But again, just like, so whether it's a person or a cryptid or even something along the lines of that, you definitely want to make sure you're always got their head in the soil for sure.
Oh my God, that would be horrible. A beaver chews through wood. Okay, so
yes,
that's really bad. Well, that's what there are people that go out and stick their hand down in holes to go noodling. Okay, so don't worry, I'm not going to be noodling. I'm not going to be waist deep in a lake getting bit by a beaver this weekend. But I don't know. That's wild. What a wild story. Yeah, you never know. That's why it's important to have training to know how to treat wounds and all that kind of stuff when you're out there doing the cryptid field research, or even fishing too. Okay,
that's what I'm saying, because like you said, you never really know when anything is going to occur, and just something along the lines of that. It's funny because he's fine now, but just the thought of that is, that's brutal. And a lot of people don't realize the discoloration in their teeth is because they have iron in their teeth, as stated, which is why they are able to chew wood and such. So
yes, for sure. Is there a cryptid beaver like creature? Andrew wants to know. Well, we have the Acoustica, which is an otter like cryptid. So I am not sure, but yes, rabies, snakes, all that. Well, I'll be looking out this weekend, but I'm really just looking for Bigfoot. Okay, and meeting new friends and hanging out and having a really good time. So let's talk about werewolves, man. Let's talk about this werewolf. I want to kind of go through the history of this a little bit and get a little more in depth, because when I was researching this the past couple of days now, and I was kind of comparing the research to my data that I had gotten out of this target, the word witchcraft came up. Okay, and the word witchcraft came up in my data, and this is a blind target, so it's really interesting that word came up, because in Europe, this happened in Germany, and in Europe, we had the European witch trials that went on, and the witch scare, and I just looked up the date right before we went live, and it was 1400 to 1775. I mean, I'm sure, I don't know how many people as a result of the witch trials that were going on there. I mean, it had to have been hundreds or thousands, I guess, of people. But I'm not sure. I don't know if that has something to do with this or not, but this was smack dab in the middle of the witch trials in Europe when this happened. So the 16th century, the town, they were terrorized by this diabolical creature, and it looked like a wolf, and it was women, children, adults, like men, and a lot of livestock. And the story is very similar to some of the other werewolf stories that I'm familiar with, like the Emily Isabella Burt from Georgia, the Georgia's werewolf. The town started noticing, the community noticed that the livestock started being mangled and slaughtered, and the blood would be drained of them. And this is very similar to this. Now, Emily Isabella Burt, I think that was in the early 1900s or the 1800s. Do you remember, Kenny?
You know how I am usually for a stickler in dates, and
Right.
I don't like to put them out if I don't have them correct. But I believe it was around, like you said, like 1865-ish, maybe, give or take. It was a minute ago for sure.
Okay, that's what I thought too. So yes, we're going to go with the 1860s because I remember seeing her tombstone, or her it was like her memorial where she's buried. They said 1860 something or 1840 something maybe.
Yeah, it's definitely a while ago, that's for sure.
It was it was a long time ago. There were a lot of animals that were going they weren't just going missing, they were being found. And then the cattle were mutilated. Okay, so if you read articles on this, they say there were cattle mutilations, and a lot of animals, they were ripped open and their organs were eaten and stuff, and it was almost like it was some savage animal was doing this. Okay, well, the animals are one thing, but then women and children began to disappear from their homes. Young women vanished from the paths that they traveled every day, and some were found deceased, and others were just horribly mutilated. And some people were never found. Some of these women and the children were never found. And so that's what really threw the community into like a huge panic, because the community suspected that it was hungry wolves. And of course, the villagers took up arms and went on hunting sprees to try to find these wolves. And it was just like the story of Emily Burt, where the community was losing. They weren't losing their people; they were losing their animals. And so and the animals were their main source of commerce for a lot of those families out there. So they're losing money, losing their livelihoods with all the animals that were going missing. But a lot of people were saying, these are so savage, unalivings. It's not just a wolf. It's not a group of wolves. These are werewolves. And apparently werewolves were a thing back then. And it was no secret. People said that, they knew of people who could actually transform into werewolves. The story went that Peter, I'm going to say Stubb. It might be Stube or something. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I'm going to say Stubb. Okay. But he would put on the pelt of a wolf, which sounds very much like the S-walkers. I don't want to say the S-walker word too much. I almost got in trouble last time for saying it too much. But he would put on this pelt whenever he would go out looking for his victims. Now, I said in the intro, Kenny, that he made a pact with the devil. All right. So what does that sound like to you? That's more like a S-walker, right?
Yeah, for sure. And are you not allowed to say the skinwalker, or is it just something that...
Well, you can only, I can say it, but I was told not to say it more than 3 times. Okay, 3 times and then you're out. It's like you get their attention. So that's why. Yeah.
Good to know, considering I already have made my...
We've already said it twice or 3 times. No.
So
let's call them walkers. Right? Call them walkers.
That definitely sounds pretty similar to that. And most of the Navajo legends, the majority of the indigenous culture speak of it, but the Navajos are pretty much, I guess, the specialists when it comes to the skinwalkers. The walkers, I'm sorry. Meaning that they are more educated on that aspect, and because it's a lot to do with oral histories. Meaning, one of my really good friends, Nooksy and Brother Nature, who's our tracker, he's part of the Yuki tribe, but he knows about walkers, but he doesn't like to talk about them that much. But also, he himself will say that the Navajo are pretty much like the experts, more or less, on that topic. And yeah, which, if you look at any of their translations, it means like he or she who walks on all fours or being on all fours. And it always comes down to having to have the pelt. So yeah, that's why I kind of wonder if the word werewolf and walkers are more closely intertwined than people think.
I think that there's a connection there. Okay, so I mentioned in the intro too that he had been pretty evil since he was a kid. Okay, according to the reports, and he was taken to trial after he was caught. He went on a rampage for 25 years, unaliving the townspeople, could not catch this person, whatever was unaliving all the women, the children, the men, that livestock. When they finally got him, he was in wolf form, but he transferred into human form right in front of the people who caught him. When they took him to trial, he confessed to all of everything that was done. He confessed to it. Now, there's debate as to whether some people say, well, he was tortured. And we're going to get into that in just a minute because it was pretty brutal too. He was tortured and he was unalived. And so back then, sometimes people would get a confession just because they were being tortured. Okay, so there's some controversy with that. But, okay, so I'm going to tell you what he said. So at his trial, he confessed that the devil himself gave him a magic belt of wolf fur at age 12, that when he put it on, he transformed into the likeness of a greedy, devouring wolf, strong and mighty, with eyes great and large, which in the night sparkled like brands of fire, a mouth great and wide, with the most sharp and cruel teeth, a huge body and mighty paws. When he took the belt off, he believed he returned to his human state. And that's wild. Okay, it's wild because I had just talked about the story of the two men that is one of the oldest Viking stories. And the story goes, those two men were thieves. They broke into a house of a wealthy man, and there were two men in that house, and they took the wolf pelts out of the house. The two thieves, the son and the father, put these pelts on, and they went into werewolf mode. And they went on a ravenous unaliving spree. And for 11 days, they had transformed into werewolves. And then on that 11th day, they turned back into humans, and they burned the pelts because they had gone and just done massive destruction. And the father had even bitten the son in the neck, and he almost while they were in that form. But these stories go back to the beginning of history. Okay, so this is just a really interesting story because it sounds so similar to a lot of the other werewolf stories that I've heard and that we've looked into. But it's all about putting that wolf pelt on, which would indicate either S-Walker, okay, kind of stuff going on, but some form of magic. Okay, some form of magic. These are not just like, we're not talking about Dogman at this point. We're talking about something that's more magical and magical based, I think. But he was a deranged serial, and over the course of 25 years, he was responsible for 13 children, 2 pregnant women, and numerous livestock. The young women among his victims were, let's just say, SA'd, if y'all know what I mean. I'm not going to say it out loud, before he tore them apart. So he was doing more than just unaliving them and ripping them apart. Okay, he was doing other stuff to them as well. And with the pregnant women, this is very okay. If you guys are squeamish, you don't want to hear this. I'm not going to get into detail, but he actually went after pregnant women for a reason. Okay, and took the babies from them. Okay, and y'all can do the research on this. I'm not going to get into the details on that. But he went for small children as well. And he did horrible things to those children. Lambs and calves were ripped apart, and then he ate them too. So he was not only like ripping people apart, he was eating them too while he was in that form. He had a triple unaliving at some point where he saw 2 men and 1 woman taking a walk outside the city, and he crouched down behind some bushes and he did a sneak attack on them. There was at least 1 kid that was able to escape. And this was one day when several children were playing in a meadow. He grabbed a girl by the neck, and the other children ran away, and he ripped her throat. I hate saying this because it's so bad. It's so gross. I'm so sorry, y'all. But the little girl had time to scream, and that's when people heard her, and they were able to come. And I want to say that was when they found him. Okay, I think that's when they found him. I'm not positive, but I think that's when he was finally caught because the little girl was able to scream. But there's no doubt this man was a monster. He really did exist. This is a story that it's in the history books. Okay, this is a big deal in Germany back in the 1500s. But yeah, let's see. I'm trying to see what other important information we have here. I have a lot of notes on this, by the way. Okay, but Okay, so here we go. Let's get into when he was caught. Okay, let's get into when he was caught. They didn't catch him when the girl screamed, but they got on his trail at that point. Okay, so there were men who went hunting for him for days. They finally found him. It looked like a wolf, and they chased him down. And the dogs chased the animal until he was cornered. The hunters were sure they were chasing a wolf, but when the dogs had it cornered, it turned into the human. Okay, it turned into a human. And that's when the man had removed the magic belt, they said. And they watched him remove this belt that he had on. And that's when he transformed back into a human, which is really odd. It just, like you said, it just doesn't seem possible, right? But then again, every day, there's so many strange things going on around us. We talk about like reptilians and the holographic universe. And I mean, there's a lot of magical technology, I think. It's been around for a long time. I mean, who knows? Hunter said they didn't see a magic belt. Yeah, even though he said there was a magic belt, but they didn't see one. But they said that there was only a walking stick in his hand. At first, they disbelieved their own eyes. They didn't even believe what they were looking at. After all, this man was a respected, long-time resident of their community. There's no way he could be the werewolf. So they thought that it was a devilish trick, and they actually debated as to whether this was the devil playing tricks on them. And it was like the devil, or it was Satan, making them believe that this person that they had seen transform from a werewolf was actually Satan himself playing a trick on them. But Peter Stubb was arrested and tried for all of those. Okay, all the schmurders, as my friend Bryce says. So they say that it was only under the pain of the torture that he confessed to all those crimes, including sorcery, his consort with the devil, and the story of the magic belt. They say that he was some people say that he was innocent, and he just was tortured really bad. And they said that some people think that he was a victim of like the rivalry amongst like the churches, okay, back then. And they wanted to make an example out of him. And so that's why they went so hard on him. And that, a lot of people thought that the whole time it probably was a wolf and it wasn't actually him. But was he a serial political victim? Who knows? I think I have an idea though, because I did remote view this. And if you want me to get into detail, Kenny, should I get into detail about the torture they did to him? It's pretty bad. What do you think?
I mean, you could probably outline it without trying to, I guess, tick off YouTube too much, because you know how they roll.
It's so bad. Well, I have a picture of it. Okay, so there are pictures of this, and I guess back in the 1500s they would tie people to a wagon wheel, and just cut them up and do weird stuff to them. It was definitely harsh punishment, let's just say. And they even put, after they chopped his head off, they put it on top of a spoke on a wheel. They didn't just get him, and I do believe that he did unalive his family, a lot of his family and people that he was close to, they said. But they said his mistress, I'm not sure if that meant his wife or his girlfriend, and his daughter were actually unalived with him or after him. But you can see in the middle there, I believe that the community took a wolf's body and put his head on top of it to let everyone know that he had been the werewolf. That was him. So it was a human head on top of a wolf's body that they kind of pieced together and put on display for the entire community to see. Okay, so I know it's really nasty. And I do have some pictures here of the incident. I mean, this is not the actual incident, but these are just some of the illustrations that I found from back then. And it's just so cool, and it's interesting. It's cool is not the right word. Okay, it's interesting that werewolves were such a big part of history back then. And like I said, this was during the witch trials as well. Okay, now they considered him to be a devil worshiper because he admitted to making a deal with the devil. Today, when you make a deal with the devil, you get a full contract to be a famous, rapper or something, So it's like, wow, it's so strange, like we hear about people signing their names over to like the devil and stuff. So I don't know. It's just so interesting. Back then it would get you, burn at the stake. But today in our society, it makes you millions, I guess. So, but we're not here to talk about that today. And yeah, let's get into the data. What do you think about all that, Kenny? What do you think?
It's pretty bizarre stuff for sure, right
Yeah.
there. And, I mean, you make a valid point, though. Realistically, when you torture somebody, they're obviously going to admit to whatever's going on. I mean, it's stopping the pain, or like when I was a kid, my parents would tickle attack me until I admitted to what I had done. And I mean, yeah, you're being tickled, but it's still torture to an extent. And you're like, yeah, I ate the cookies. Like, you know what I mean? So you end up, I feel like, admitting to something that might not have any truth to it at all. And correct me if I'm wrong, I do know that there were werewolf trials as well.
Mm-hmm.
They also purged people for that. But again, when it comes to, I mean, the gentleman even said it himself, though, big pause. Like, I don't think he had ever really said anything about necessarily being bipedal. And SWs are, well,
That's close.
yeah, that was close. Are should like shock me every time. For something that, well, never really becomes bipedal according to their culture. It's just a large version of that animal. Whereas he himself he never, in that description, never mentioned becoming a hulking bipedal creature. He just said a large wolf with crazy teeth and big paws.
That's a very good point there. And so this is a terrible drawing here. At least it's a drawing, and it's not the real picture or anything. But this is a man that looks like he's in wolfen form, I guess, with a kid in his mouth. But that is how it was described: is that he would put that wolf pelt on his head, on his body, drape it over him, and he would take on the characteristics or the form of a werewolf or a wolf. So goes back to even the Vikings, right? The Vikings, what we've talked about before with the berserkers and whatnot, and the fine line between the S-walkers and the berserkers and this, okay, the werewolves. Well, let's I'm going to go over some of the data tonight, okay? Because this is a really interesting target, because I would really like to know, okay, was this guy guilty of doing this, of all these unalivings? Was he an actual werewolf? Was there magic involved, or was it just, I don't want to say the story. The story was definitely not all made up. Okay, there were people who did pass away. There were a lot of mauling back then. It's in the history books. It's in the records. But did this man really do it? And was he a real werewolf? Okay. Corey says, Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Corey says, medieval Knievel. Evil, medieval Knievel. That's funny. Okay. All right. Well, let's see here. I'm just going to go over some of my analytic overlay and stuff for this. Okay. And I want to say that some of the first bit of my data actually did involve magic. Okay. So magic was actually a big part of this data. And I actually wrote down witchcraft as well in this. But I even wrote down the word body snatchers. Okay. So body snatchers, I heard takeover. It's a takeover, cruel nature, maniacal, dark heart, beware. I mean, this is a horrible target. Okay. Like, I didn't know what I was looking at, but I knew that this was something that was bad. I felt like I was in a war zone when I was looking into this one. And a lot of stormy stuff and just chaos, right? Chaos, aftermath. I wrote down violent hijack. I wrote down black magic. I wrote down magic twice. I wrote down witchcraft. And I also, I was just picking up on a whole lot of chaos. Okay, a whole lot of chaos, but I did write down magic. Now I do remember I just said that the hunting party who actually tracked him down said that he had a stick in his hand, a walking stick. Now, could that have been a magical wand or some kind of stick? I mean, I've heard about, even in modern day, I had someone tell me not too long ago, I'm not going to get into too many details, but someone was out doing some investigating with like Dogman and stuff, and had a stick, and it might have been kind of like they were using it as kind of like a magical element to conjure. Okay, like conjure cryptids. I do not recommend conjuring cryptids. I don't think that's a good idea, honestly. And if I were to be out in the woods and someone did that, I would leave. Okay, because that's just not how I roll. Because when you're conjuring cryptids, you could pretty much anything could show up. You know what I mean? That's why I usually only go out in the woods with people that I'm like on my team, that aren't going to be doing stuff like that. But anyways, let's just say, okay, so my data started getting into witch trials. I actually wrote down witch trials because I'd written down witchcraft, magic, black magic. My data actually went into the witch trials, and because I wrote down got a hold on me. So looking at my data, and my Patreon members have access to all my data. Looking at my data to kind of to give an overview of it, I feel like when you analyze it, it's almost like I would say that something took over this man's body. I think this man was guilty of these crimes. And I think that something took over his body. I think that he allowed it in. Either he allowed it or someone put it in some kind of magical spell or something. I don't know. But I do think that he had some sort of possession that was going on. And I know if Dennis Carroll, Dennis is in the chat today. If Dennis is in here, he knows a lot about possession and things like that. But it would be like an S. Walker element, I think, kind of happened with this. And so, but it's interesting that it went on for 25 years, though. That just seems abnormal, doesn't it? What do you think?
Definitely bizarre for sure. And that's some pretty intriguing information. And that reminds me of the SW case of where he was the fur trader that was really successful at what he did, but yet for some reason he, when found, claimed he was starving, yet they were like, what do you mean? You're not starving, you look totally fine. And he just kept saying he was starving, and then they ended up finding he had consumed his whole family and would even pick up like the skulls and just start being like, oh, this is so and so, and just like with his fingers, and you could see like the handprints all around from when he was touching things with like the body fat and stuff like that. So yeah, Ryan Tremblay, actually, the Wendigo guy, had introduced me to that right there, and that actually kind of sounds like a potential maybe Wendigo or SW type like connection right there. So yeah, I do think, again, if the werewolf terminology and if that was potentially the changing or shifting, I think that, like I said, falls under SWs. I mean, every culture has their own version of that, whether it's Asia, I mean, for example, Chinese history is not necessarily the most easily accessible, but when you are able to talk to individuals and read it and such, they mention it as well. And I've stated this before, there's a really old image that it's definitely Chinese art. And I understand samurais were Japanese and ninjas were Chinese, okay? But I also do not fully know if at points in time Chinese soldiers wore similar armor to samurais, but I do know this piece of art is Chinese art, and it shows what is either samurais or Chinese soldiers wearing similar outfits with jet black canine-like creatures with glowing eyes in the back in between all of them. And like I said, so every culture has mentions to that. I mean, they just have different terminologies. So whether it's China, Europe, United States, Latin America, I mean, it's all there. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I just saw Caleb's in the chat. Hey, Caleb Jade's here. He says enchantment. Okay, that's a perfect term for that, right? Enchantment happened. And I wanted to pull up this comment too. I pulled it up twice. I keep losing it. I keep hitting the wrong button. Andrew said, hi guys, I wanted to ask both of you, your guest mentioned a lot of additional information regarding the Third Reich use for Dogman assets and investigations. Now, I did want to ask you about that, Kenny, about the German werewolves, okay, because we're talking about a German werewolf from the 1500s. Now, it is rumored that a certain German military leader, okay, had werewolves, like a whole regiment, like a whole unit of like, we're gonna say Yahtzee, like my friend Bryce does, Yahtzee werewolves. Okay. What do you know about that? You've covered it before, right?
yeah, that's definitely some bizarre stuff. I mean, even outside of that, you have Stalin that was doing some of that, experimentation, trying to get the ape army I mean, not necessarily at the same time as what you were referring to, but pretty close to that. And I mean, the first talks of any sort of strange stuff like that in German war history occurred around 1914 when supposedly a scientist was able to take the brain of a soldier and then put it into this wolf. Keep in mind, it's a loose trail of how you can document that. It's German history, so if they didn't want that out there, it's not necessarily going to be out there, and it's old, so take it with a grain of salt. But then also you have in World War II, the SS came across what they believed was a female dog woman that had been terrorizing them, and they lit it up and actually had local villagers make a reenactment of the video because that certain leader was a little upset that the SS hadn't brought back the corpse for him to look at. And then you have the Celi Nexus Rathis case where the American infantry unit comes into that German town where the town hall is still fully intact, and the lower levels were all flooded. And when they ended up sending down 3 divers, 2 of them didn't come back. The last one comes back and said he saw like all kinds of occult symbols and basically people with dog heads and like a goat head, etc. So that really kind of ties into like what I was saying about, I'm a big science guy, like I said, okay. And so if per se, right, it was something that could just occur, sure, you need to have some sort of lineage that is close, whether it's like, big cats, the liger, okay, that was close. I mean, polar bears, grizzly bears, okay, cool. But if you want to say, not you directly, but just people about how this could have any sort of, how they could be making, I guess, a super army, in theory, yes, theory here, if you were able to detach the head of a wolf and then a person, yet still keep your heart pumping without losing all that blood and then putting the wolf's head on, yes, in theory, after trying it so many times, you might be remotely successful. And the reason I said that is you have the Russians that did that. They took a large dog, removed its head, and put a small dog's head on it. And they also had another dog where it was completely headless, but yet they had it hooked up where basically this was causing its heart still, and it could smell things and lick things, etc. So sure, again, if you would say remove the arm of a person and put on some sort of metal arm or something, okay, that in theory, sure, you could definitely probably do that. So it really wouldn't surprise me. I mean, we know the type of stuff that, they're experimenting on and doing, yet as far as I know, you have to have something closely related, meaning I don't think you can just take a human being and mate it with a crocodile and get a crocodile hominoid, etc. But like I said, if you are taking something similar to that and taking the alligator and the crocodile and then you're messing around and trying to build some sort of super species, sure, like I said, that all definitely makes sense. Or if, like I said, the more darker sides where you're trying to put on body parts of things,
Yeah, it's like Frankenstein animals. That's like Dr. Frankenstein.
Yeah, exactly.
But we hear a lot about all the experimentation that they did, all the scientists there in Germany during the World War II era. And a lot of those scientists came to the United States. Okay. And so just imagine, we can only imagine what all's been done here too, all the underground bases and stuff. And that's a whole other subject, really. I mean, it's really the same subject, but it's also different. But a lot of strange experiments went on, even reanimating corpses and stuff like that as well. So, I am familiar with a story that came out that I talk about pretty often because I'm going to East Tennessee tomorrow, and that story of the case, actually, it's a true story of the 2 people who were unalived by packs of wild dogs on a road in I think it's Cott County in East Tennessee, and me remote viewing it, I'd come up with some kind of zombie bear kind of thing, and that it attacked both of them. And then I get a message from one of my viewers who sent me the Israeli news article and the video about the super soldier program, where they had actually been injecting different types of DNA and whatnot into our special forces soldiers voluntarily. And they were being dropped off around the world in pairs. And one of the places they had been dropped off was East Tennessee, not too far from where those people's bodies were found, or they were found after they were mauled. And that makes you wonder, because they had been injected or had some sort of, I want to say, assimilation, okay, where they had like bear and wolf and some other kind of like DNA in them. Okay, they were super soldiers. And it's not to say that they may have maybe they didn't look like a bear, but they had those characteristics and some kind of melding of their DNA and their essence. Okay, so sounds weird, right?
Straight up bizarre for sure. I mean, when you say it like that, though, that makes a little bit more sense of if you're just injecting yourself. I mean, it's no different when people do like the testosterone or some things that aren't necessarily really supposed to be cranking up inside of you. So, yeah, I can definitely buy into that aspect. But when it comes to, like I said, just thinking about trying to breed like a person and such, I mean, Stalin and those guys tried that stuff, and you would think, I guess, at that point in time, the Russians had some pretty advanced, twisted scientists, and I just think they would have had some sort of success with that. So, I mean, if you can't, in their eyes, they weren't successful at taking humans and primates or things that are closely related to us, it's hard to think how you could breed a human and a cow or something. It just doesn't logically make sense,
It doesn't, but we hear, okay, and this is from me working with some of the secret space program people, talking about some of the experimentation going down in these underground bases. And I have come across this in some of my remote viewing targets where humans are being experimented on. And this is kind of gross, okay, but some people claim that pigs, like the kind that we eat in like pork and stuff, are actually a combination of human and a wild boar or a wild hog. Okay, like a wild boar, I think. Now, I don't know if that's true. Okay, I don't know if it's true. I hope it's not. But I was told that human DNA is so malleable, you can combine it with anything and make something out of it, like a chimera. And I think chimeras are a big thing. Okay, and Caleb says, I think the movie Limitless speaks a lot of hidden truth. So y'all check out the movie Limitless, okay? But it is possible. I've been told it's very possible. And I know that I've had plenty of people on the show talking about strange things, like our friend Jeremiah Fountain came on the show and talked about a horse humanoid that his father's friend, a neighbor, had encountered. And when he reported this horse humanoid, it was alive when he found it, but it later did pass away. When he reported it to the authorities, they came with a flatbed truck and put it on there and acted like it never happened. So, and it almost had like a human-looking skin to it and stuff. So I don't know. This world is so weird. And if there can be dogmen out there and dog-headed men, I think like anything's possible. Sasquatch too. Some of the things that I've seen with my own eyes, it's like, well, this world is so weird. Why wouldn't there be werewolves? So
Very valid point right there.
yeah, it's wild. We live in such a freaking wild world right now. And trying to see, I just had a little bit more data, but it was mostly just me. I actually shut the session down, because I was seeing animals and stuff. So I started seeing, and thank goodness it was just animals. Okay, I didn't want to see human. Thank goodness I didn't see human, but I saw a bunch of like livestock and stuff. So I thought, man, okay, this target's weird. I'm shutting it down. And so I did. But I was getting mostly, it was like farm animals and stuff that I was seeing. Yeah, there were okay, so you mentioned that there were werewolf trials in Europe. And I did come across another story. I can't remember the names of them. I don't know if I have it in my note. There was an entire family that was accused of being werewolves, and they were all executed around the same time. It was at least in the same century, around the same area. So could you imagine that?
Bizarre for sure. And like I said, I mean, there is just a ton of strange historical references like that as we go out through history. It's bizarre, as stated, but I think now there's a lot more reason for people to hoax, but back then, not necessarily so much because of the potential outcome of, well, if you told somebody you saw something like that, there's a high probability they could think it might be you. So whereas today, you know, people want clout and such. And yeah, no, it's really interesting. That's why I take a lot more merit into some of the older cases than I do with some of the newer stuff.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, we're in. I think in the chat was talking about the, you know, like what the Bible says, the pig is unclean. There are certain religions that don't eat pork too. You know what I mean? Because some say that it is unclean. Dennis is in here. Hey, Dennis. He says Malafracarum, the hammer of witches. Okay, I'm not sure what that is, but that sounds really cool. It could be in relation to that staff or the stick that they said that the man had when he was a wolf and they saw him transform into a human there. So could have been a magic wand. Okay, and according to my data, it very well could have been, for sure. Brown Dwarfs has an interesting comment. He says, some cannibals say pork is the closest thing to human. Okay, gross. I do like some bacon, though. And when I start researching stuff like this, I don't eat bacon for like a couple of weeks. And then I go back to bacon at some point. I do. It's kind of like it makes you gag. And then you're like, oh, wait, it's so delicious. Okay. And then you go back. It's kind of like eating at McDonald's. I don't eat at McDonald's at all, but occasionally, yes, I will get a burger thing.
Yeah,
you know?
I can't even remember. I haven't had fast food in like, oh, geez, at least like 10, 12 years. I mean, I eat a little bit of meat, but I'm a big veggie guy too. I mean, I eat like chicken and turkey and stuff, but I get super grossed out by like grizzle and things on the side of meat. So if I get like boneless chicken and I bite into it and there's some sort of tendon or something, it immediately makes me not want to consume the rest of my portion. But
oh yeah. Shanti's in here. Hey, Chantel, you guys with Aquarius Rising Africa. Hey, lady. Thank you so much for being here. She says humans are often fed to pigs and then we eat them. Oh, wow. Okay. Yes. That's why, yes, you gotta watch out for those pig farms and stuff. Okay. That's part of the lore behind Brown Springs in Oklahoma. I remember some of the guys that would go doing their investigations there said that there was actually a pig farm there. There were pigs kept there because it was used by the mob. Okay. I don't know which faction. I don't know who. But they said that they would go and take bodies there.
yeah, of course.
Feed them to the pigs, right?
I was like that pig lady. The only reason she got caught is because they don't digest the teeth. Can't remember where she was, but she would hire people to come help on her property, and she'd just feed them to the pigs. Yeah, it was actually Explore With Us, Iwu. They do a lot of stuff like that. They had covered it, the pig farm lady.
Oh, okay. Well, that's disgusting. Okay, that's disgusting. But it's actually good to know these things, okay? And I know like it sounds so demented and so weird, but like it's good to have this kind of knowledge, okay? So like if somebody feeds me to a pig, hopefully my teeth will be found one day.
Yeah, that's the thing they can't digest. Literally, that's how they had found all the
There's hope.
Yeah,
for people. Yeah.
Yeah, the teeth were still all out in the pig's little pen and stuff. Yeah,
oh my God. There's always a good side. See, I'm always looking for the good side of things, Kenny.
This is true.
Dennis says the S-Walkers are witches.
Yeah, that's kind of where I stand on it, yes.
Yes, okay. So I think that it backs up. Okay, the data backs this up where I was picking up these blind targets. I don't know what they are. I'm writing down witchcraft and witches and black magic and stuff like that was in the data. I think that there's a high probability that this person, what's his name, Daniel Stubb or Stabe or however you say his name. I think that he was probably did a little S-Walker stuff. I think that's what he was doing. I think that's what I think. And I do think that was him that did unalive those people too. I do. And I know it sounds horrible, because you want to think the best about people. It's clearly stated that he was a serial killer.
It's not a good thing, that's for sure.
Yeah. It's a great way to get away with it, though, right? You just like turn into you change form, which is really eerie right now because, you go online and you see all these videos of humans who they're transforming, but it's by wearing masks and stuff. And just think of all the crimes people can get away with, those new rubber masks that you can buy now. where you could change your total, your age, your race, everything about you can just completely change in like 2 seconds of just putting a rubber mask on. And it's different. It's not magic. It's just a mask. I don't know. I just made that connection. There's no connection really. But yeah, can you think of any other really interesting werewolf cases here in the United States to talk about? Because I know there's one that you and I talked about recently, that wolf woman of Alabama.
Yeah, that was a pretty bizarre one. The only other one that could kind of fall into that category happened in Idaho, where I can't remember the exact date, but this creature supposedly was attacking people, and when they disposed of it, they cut it in half and they put it in 2 different graves, one that says were and the other one that says wolf, but it's spelled like WARE and then WOL like FF. And supposedly a few days later, there was a massive lightning storm that hit it. And this thing, the next day when they went to check on it, it had somehow dug itself up out of both spots and taken like a big bite out of like one of the tombstones. That's a pretty interesting one too.
Whoa, that's odd. That's really weird. Well, they wanted to make sure that that person was not going to arise from the werewolf, the one that got cut in half and buried in 2 different places. Wow, that's wild. Where was that?
It was in Idaho. A little bit later, once we finish up, if you want, I can send you those 2 pictures and the actual location. It's from one of our researchers that was out there with a member of our science team. They are from Idaho, so they like went right to the gravesite area and were able to find it all. It's called the Knocking Werewolf Grave.
Okay. Oh, I have to look into that.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, my friend Bryce and I, we've actually discussed going to see Emily Isabella Burt's grave, but we've both been told, we've both heard too, that that area is like a family plot and it's some private property, and so they don't want anybody to go there. Okay, they really don't. And so we would have to get permission. We would not go there without permission, with people's like prior knowledge that we're going to be there, and they may not want us to go at all. So we would respect that. I wouldn't just go trespassing. But on her tombstone, it does say, I believe her aunt was the one that put the quote on there, and it said something about now she's in her true form. She's finally in her true form now that she's passed away. What is that supposed to mean?
That's
Does she mean she's an angel? Is she transformed?
We have another gravesite on site too that says something along the lines of our beloved was taken by bipedal wolves. I can't remember the exact name of who it was on the gravestone, but it's in our evidence. Yeah, it's pretty messed up.
Oh, wow. I remember seeing the video that you did. I saw that. I can't remember exactly what it said. The tombstone said something. It definitely made you think that maybe that could have been a werewolf or something, but I don't know. There's always debunking too. There's always somebody who's like, no, it just says that and it was misinterpreted, But was it? I don't know.
Good question.
I guess we'll never know. We'll never know. But I don't think werewolves they don't live forever, right? How long do werewolves live, do you think? Are they immortal? They must not be.
No, I think they have the same type of life expectancy just as a normal human being.
Because they are kind of human, right? So they're not vampires like yourself, right? Born in 1400s.
Yeah, no, they definitely age for sure.
For sure. Oh man. Well, this is a really fascinating subject, and I knew that it was going to be super gory and gross if I got into it. Now, I didn't get into the way they tortured this poor man, and I don't say poor man. If he was guilty, he deserved it. He deserved the torture. But let's just say they put him on that wagon wheel, and they actually took a hot poker or pliers, and they like pulled his skin off and stuff.
Yeah,
I would hate to live back then. I'm just saying. Was that their form of entertainment?
That sucks. Like they went to watch the gladiators and such, and there's every form of torture is beyond bizarre of how people just came up with it. Like one of the Greeks' forms was to feed you a bunch of milk and then cover you in honey and then bury you in the ground so that like the bugs come and get you. It's like, what the heck? But yeah, for sure.
Yes. Oh, they also broke his arms and his legs while he was alive too. So
Yeah.
they just straight up just did whatever they could, and then they lopped his head off.
That's bizarre.
So
That's terrible.
yeah, that was rough. Yeah, you didn't want to live back then and be a criminal, and or be accused of being a criminal, because those people got the same punishment that were innocent. That
Yes.
were wrongly accused, and a lot of people were wrongly accused back then. Because we with the witch trials, we had the Salem witch trials here in the U.S. Years it was. When was that? Was that the 1700s? I guess it was like the 1700s. I'm assuming. I don't know when we had the Salem witch trials here. 1800s. Was it 1800s? I don't know. Somebody in the chat will know. But it's pretty rough, and so that's why people do take the stance with this guy, saying that he was just persecuted. Maybe he had somebody that just didn't like him, even though they said that he was an upstanding man in his community. And they couldn't believe that that was him that had done those crimes. They thought the devil had tricked them. Okay. But
like every time, I guess one person thinks somebody's good, I guess somebody else might not, for example. So
when you get me says 1600s. Gosh, that was a long time ago. So yeah. Well, what I've come to realize too is that some of the people that you would never suspect are some of the most maniacal, mean people that you'll ever meet in your life, and they just put on a really good facade. Okay, so
truth.
Yeah. I learned that the hard way, like about a year ago, something like that. I'm just gonna say it. Yeah.
True now, so it's all set, but yeah, that's why you gotta stay with the good ones.
Yeah. That's why I tell my audience, go with your gut, y'all. Go with your intuition when it comes to people too. They can be the most upstanding citizens and be mayor of your town or president or governors or whatever, or your clergy people, whatever. But they, some people have a dark side. You just never know. And apparently this Daniel fella, he might have had a dark side. Okay, and let's say dibble dabbled in things that he might not should have been dibble dabbling in a little bit. And yeah. It's just it's an interesting story, and it fits along with the narrative of the werewolves that we talked about on Saturday with the Viking werewolves. Okay, but this just backs it up with some more history, and I thought it'd be a great time to discuss this one tonight. And I think we got a good dose of it tonight, Kenny. So what do you have going on? What other projects are you working on right now?
That we did get a good job, and I appreciate that. Actually, like I stated, I gotta link up my nieces and get them back and all situated, because it's always good to hang out with them, but they are maniacs. And then I need to eat, I need to shower, and then I have about 20 minutes left of Al's video I'm working on. And while I'm working on that, I'm probably going to catch the rest of the Chiefs Ravens game, because I'm in a fantasy league with a bunch of my little brother's friends and myself and such. And
You're watching football.
I'm a hockey guy, I'm a Bruins guy, but football is pretty cool. So yeah.
Nice. William Nighthawk's in the chat too. We've got a lot of great people in the chat tonight. He says 1648. That's the witch trials when that happened. Gosh, that was a long time ago. That was a very long time ago. And you know what I've actually met a lot of, especially women, even men too, who feel as though they were persecuted as being witches back during the witch trials, and they're like reincarnated. Okay, I was even interviewed actually one time about it, and I feel like I might have some ties too, which is really odd, right? So, I think it kind of stemmed from being persecuted in this lifetime for being a witch, even though I'm not like making potions and stuff. Okay. Like I'm no like witch. Okay. But doing the remote viewing, I've been accused of being a lot of weird things from being a remote viewer. Okay. And reading tarot cards and stuff. So yeah. So I would think like it would make sense that like I would be persecuted as being a witch this lifetime if I was one in a past life, because that's generational trauma, right?
That's just what I'm saying. I mean, anybody would. I like to use like turmeric and things, like when my body hurts, things like that. You'd be considered a witch. Or the fact that if you could just hang out with some sort of wild animal, you must have some sort of wild powers. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just boils down to a lot of misunderstanding. Yet now you would like to think that we've kind of evolved past those aspects, but it just really shows you about how after the Romans and Greeks kind of fell, we just went into like a recession.
Oh yeah. I'm trying to go through the comments tonight. We're not going to have a super long show tonight, you guys, because I have to go pack up my truck and get ready to go to East Tennessee this weekend for the, I think it's their second annual Squatch Out, or maybe a fourth. Maybe it's their fourth. This is my first time going up there. So I'm going to have, I got a good night of getting packed up, and I just don't have enough minutes in my day to do that. But yeah, and Kenny's also pretty busy too. So this has been fun. Will you come back and hang out with me some more, Kenny? We always have a good time.
I'm always down to come hang out with you, just like you always have time to come on Midnight Lycanthropy. I always come hang out with you for sure. You're one of my favorite people, and I mean, even though I'm busy, I always have time for my friends. You know.
Well, thank you. Well, tell the audience about your YouTube channel and what you guys have going on at the North American Dogman Project right now.
Yeah, for sure. So pretty much over on StarFox Radio, what I like to do is just try to get as many credible people on there to speak. And I mean, if I just wanted to hear myself talk all the time, then I would just have a solo podcast. But I'm not about that. I like to have all my guests and host be able to, just bring as much information as possible. And we have a science team, and we have all kinds of great people that are collaborating with us. I put up all the North American Dogman Project stuff we do over there, but then people such as Jessica and Ryan Tremblay and a ton of other people that I collaborate with as well. It's all up there. So I try to break it down into playlists for people. And besides that, I'm actually tomorrow night going to be doing, it's going to tie into what we're trying to just do for a promo video, but it's actually going to help me out. A friend of mine who's a musician put together some really cool industrial, dark, like synthwave rock music. And tomorrow night, my little brother's coming over, and him and I are going to make like a video, like a live werewolf type like video. So it's pretty cool. And yeah, that's what I do. I just specialize in journalism and just videography and graphics.
Yeah, and you do a great job. You have such a very artistic and unique spin on all of your videos and how you put everything together. And you do a great job with the North American Dogman Project and getting the information out. And I saw Richard Goforth. I saw your comment. I will not be near the LBL. That's on the more of the west side of the state. I'm going to be on East Tennessee. I'm going to be on the other side over there, like, by Oak Ridge Labs and stuff, where all the good stuff. I mean, Tennessee is such an anomalous state. Oh my God, there's so much high strangeness going on there. And that's where I did the S. Walker investigation at that cave last year with Drewski, who's in the chat tonight. What's up, Drewski? I'm going to see him this weekend with some of the guys from Cryptid Warfare. You know Drewski. Y'all been on each other.
When he first popped up in here, he gave us a nice shout out. That's why I was like, what's up?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I'm going to see all them this weekend too. We're going to have a really good time. And but yeah, Tennessee is just full of caves and dogman sightings and reports and Bigfoot and UFOs and little people and everything. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, that's where our Spurlunkers from is Tennessee. So.
Oh yeah, we'll have to come down here and do some cryptid hunting with us sometime. I know you don't get out in the field so much, but you can always come with us. Okay.
No, I'm definitely down. And when you guys go up here into the Northeast as well, hit me up for sure.
For sure. Yeah, a lot of and even like Civil War stuff that went on. It's not too far from Chickamauga, where I talk about that all the time with the old green eyes and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm going to come and give an update on Mondays. And I saw my moderator. Thank you guys so much. My moderators are the best in the business. Thank y'all so much.
I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Yeah, they've been putting your links in there the whole show.
Yeah, I got the comments over there. Good stuff. I appreciate everybody. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for all your support and all your love. And shout out to all my moderators, my Patreon members, my channel members. If you guys would like to support the channel, become a member of the Hunt Club over here. And I put exclusive content out there. I'm probably not going to have a show tomorrow night. It'll be the first Saturday ever that I'm going to miss a show, unless I can get one up for you guys tomorrow before I leave, which is a lot of work, and I got a lot to do. So I will definitely be back on Monday, 1 p.m. Monday afternoon. Our very first show was going to be with John Vendeventer on Monday. So you guys, please come join me. It's going to be a lot of fun. And listen to Midnight Lycanthropy, okay, over on StarFox Media. I'm going to put the link up on my social media after the show tonight to the show that Kenny and I just did. And it's out of this world. So Kenny, keep up the good work, man. Keep up the good work. And thank you for being here.
And thank you so much. And to everybody, even if you don't want to hear anything else that I have to say, I do have a playlist of just Jessica and ourselves speaking. So, I mean, even if you didn't want to check into any of the other stuff, you can just click on the playlist right there for sure. So
you're the best. I need to make a playlist just for the Midnight Lycanthropy too. I'll do that on my channel as well. That's a great idea.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. Andrew says you guys just dropped a killer episode on that channel. Thank you. I appreciate it. And so I hope everybody learned a little something tonight. This was a really interesting case. Thank goodness it was back in the 1500s, so we don't have to deal with this right now. Okay. Hopefully we don't have this type of stuff happening today, but who knows? Who knows? So keep your head on a swivel, everybody. Okay. And I want to thank everybody so much from the bottom of my heart. I want to thank Aussie Sue for that super sticker. I think I had it up there and I forgot to thank you. So Aussie Sue, thank you so much for the super sticker tonight. That means the world to me for your support. So thank you. And you guys, I'll be back on Monday. If I don't see you tomorrow night, I'll be in Tennessee this weekend. So everybody have a wonderful night. Kenny, have a great night.
You too. I'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Okay. Y'all stay safe out there. And I'll see y'all on Monday. I don't see you tomorrow.
See you later.
All right.
Thank you for everyone who once again stopped by tonight for this episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on Star Fox Radio. If you do enjoy our content, please like, subscribe, and share it. Feed the algorithm, and I will catch you very soon.